Okay, here we go, everybody. So today, again, well, first, do you all have any questions on if, else, elifs, when to use those? Briefly, who can give me an example of a relational operator? Greater than, yes. Give me another one. Less than. Give me an example of a logical operator. And. Give me an example of a Boolean expression. No. A Boolean expression. What? There you go. X equal 5. That's the actual expression. But you guys are true in Boolean variables. Those are true and false. And that's about it. That's it for the review. Good job, guys and lady. Okay, so we're going to go over for loops and while loops today. For, who remembers? A while loop is a what type loop? Condition based. And a for loop is a what based loop? Number, close. You what numbers? Count. It's a count based loop. So there is a certain number of times it's going to do something, but it's not necessarily only with numbers. You can have a for loop cycle through a list and have it display the information in the list. Sorry, my computer went black for a second. Okay, so let's start with for loop. So if I want to display the numbers between 0 and 10, including 0 and 10, how do I do that? Stockton.
For x in range 0,
0 what?
10, or 11.
11, there you go. Then what do I put here?
Print
Mr. Stoter?
I need to share my screen, don't I?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll get there one of these days. Okay, so this needs to go. Okay, so that's going to give us 0 to 10. Do I recommend having, so briefly, if you want something to happen X amount of times, I think it's okay to have 4x in range blank. Okay? If you're doing for name in something else, in a list of names, you'd want to do something like that. I tend to not like having X's and Y's if you're doing something other than I just want this to happen 6 times. Like if you're playing a game and you say, how many times do you want to play this game? For X in range times. Oh, I forgot. That's probably something I should go over too. So you can ask a user how many times they want to play a game. Would you like to play a game? So I typically just do something like how many times, because that's a very simple thing to change in coding. So you don't have to say, how many times would you like to play this game? For tests and stuff you should, but because you always want the output to the user to explain what they need. How many times? Well, how many times what? What am I doing? How many times have I played this game? How many times have I stood? You want to tell the user to enter in exactly what you want them to enter. So what they're going to type in is they're always going to, let's assume they're always going to type in a number, with no decimals, so it's always a flat number. We would do 4x in range times print x. So what this would do is how many times do we want to play this, Daniel or David? 2. So it's going with 0 and 1. To make sure, if you can always, again, you can try and accept, or you can always just make sure that no matter what, if they type in a number, if they type in a decimal, you just integerize it to make sure that whatever they type in, so if they type in 15.8945, it'll still go to just 15. Well, for 15 minus 1. Do you guys all see that? So I'll copy this. so you can see the difference in the two. Now I can also do a for loop with a string. So I could do for ch in, what does ch stand for if I'm cycling through a string? Does anyone remember? A string is a string of what? Characters. So ch stands for characters. Do you have to do that? No, it's just a way for you. In your code, you know what your variables mean. You want to make sure that your variables are named properly and that they represent, that by reading the variable name, you know what it represents. So if you're doing random number 1, right, because you want a random number, don't just put, you know, A and B and C and D. And students have done that, and it's so hard, so much harder for me to debug it and for you, because you're like, wait, what's A again? Then you're coming back and you're like, okay, A is this, but then I do A equals A minus B, so then what was B? And it just, don't do that. You will hate debugging if you do it that way. So for character, I'm gonna comment all this out for now. So for character in hello world, print ch. You guys have any questions on that? I can always add something to this too. Hello. So now it prints hello to the end of each one. Do you guys remember how to print on the same line using a loop like this? I don't know if I covered it with the older class. I know I covered it with the younger class. David?
Oh, isn't it like, in the little,
Parentheses?
not the little green one?
Yeah?
So, do you have like a, what is it called? Not a comma,
Quotation.
You mean that thing?
no,
Not the backslash?
oh yeah, so I think it's the comma, and then it's like, dot join?
What that'll do is that will actually take things in a list and combine them.
Oh,
So not quite. What you do, so by default, print ends the print line with a new line. So if we tell it, yo, don't end with a print line, with a new line, end with nothing, and we just type the word end equals, and we can end it with a space, we can end it with a smiley face, and when you run it, it will print H, then it will end that print statement with a smiley face and not a new backslash. Then you have E and all that, and that's how you can print a looped character on the same line.
I don't remember that.
Wait, so let's say
I 100% covered it. I know that.
I like recognize it, but like I don't
Yeah.
remember, like, memorizing it.
That's fine. That's why it's in the review. What's up?
yeah, so let's say like I was printing on like numbers 1 through 10, and I did like for X and range, and then I did 1, and then comma 11, and then if I wanted to print them all in like one line instead of like what you said, that would be
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Now notice, even when I'm at the very, very end of the loop, it doesn't give me a new print. It doesn't give me a new line. So if you want to make sure you can print a blank line like that, and what that'll do is once you're done with this loop, it'll print a new line, so then this next loop doesn't start right here. This is very helpful, and then if you, at any point, if you are printing, let's do x, x times 2, x, right? So we want to see the first, second, third power of each number. But we want, because if you just do it like this, hang on, what does it look like if we do it like this? Yeah, that's not very fun. I can't read that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. We don't. I don't like that. That should be raised to the second power. Okay. This looks pretty gross, right? So we don't want to end. Probably don't want to use that. But even then, let's say I'm writing to another file and I want more spaces. What you can do is you can use the sep function for separator, and you can put whatever you want here, and it will print in between. Instead of wherever this comma is that separates two items you're printing, will get replaced with this. So you can put tabs in here, \c\t, and now it looks really nice.
But like it's not.
It's not justified to the right, I know, but that is something we'll eventually learn how to deal with when we're writing to other things. But does that make sense? So you have the separator function, which will separate items, and you have the end function, the end method that will, at the end, the last time that thing gets printed, or I'm sorry, once everything's been printed, it will then print whatever you have at the end. By default, it's a new line. But you can make it be whatever you want. Questions on that? Yes, Maddie.
In Python, when you like write inside like a string, does it matter if you use a single apostrophe or like the double?
It does. So this, if you have, so let's x is, this is what I normally do. Okay. But if I want to put, if I wanted to have string is I'll read I'm gonna spell Shakespeare wrong. Shakespeare's Hamlet tonight. Right? This is all really weird. So I can do this. I can fix this a couple ways. For all of my apostrophes, I can put a backslash, which makes it read. A backslash apostrophe means an apostrophe in a string. Because if you just have an apostrophe, it is the end of a string. So that works, right? String works. Great. That's because I'm doing it in the shell. So what we can also do is, instead of doing that, if we put double quotation marks on the ends and everything else is a single quote, you can have the single quotes inside of a double quote and it doesn't mess with it. Now the last one is triple quotations, which is better shown in here. So if I have, let's say I have a bajillion lines of code, or I have a lot of text I want to tell the user, but I don't want it to be one really, really long line, and I don't want to start each line with quotation marks. What you can do is you can go, hey there, you are reading the help me file. And so now this is a multiple line string that I don't think we'll get an error. We might. Yeah. So you can just tell the user, it's kind of like commenting stuff out, but instead of it being red, it's green. So in my code in college, I used to have to write all of my code to have it run, and then at the very end, or before it, I would have to copy all of my code and print it so that the TA or whoever, the TA, could see my code ran, and he wouldn't have to, like, I don't know why, because he had the source code, but I think he just wanted to run it, see how it was, and have the code right there along with it. So that's the difference between the three different types of quotation marks.
So like, could you use the quotation mark instead of the apostrophe when like using functions and stuff like that? Like I think in the shell you have like x equals and then like a string. Can you put that string inside of quotation marks instead of an apostrophe, and will it work exactly the same?
Mhm.
Okay, so would it be okay if I do that?
I don't care.
Okay, cool.
As long as it's green, I don't really care. Okay, so any questions on for loops? Anything, you can use a for loop with anything that is basically made up of other things. The integer 10 isn't really made up of anything else. The string 10, 1, 0 is made up of 1 and a 0 as a character. But 10 itself as an integer is its own thing. Same thing with floats. So in order to cycle through a set of numbers, you have to have range. Did I go over what happens if you have 3 numbers in there? Yeah. It's the skipper. One is the start, the end, and then every other third or fourth or fifth number. Okay. So you can go through strings, you can go through lists, you can go through dictionaries, you can go through we're actually going to use a for loop to walk through our directories. So for every file in this, for every folder and subfolder in this folder, do something. So as long as there's something, as long as it's iterable, which is basically made up of other things, you can cycle through it in a list, or you can cycle through it in a loop. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes left. While loops. While is a condition-based loop, so it's kind of like an if statement, but it's perpetual. It doesn't stop until this while statement is true, or it stops when it's false. So if I have x is 10, while x is less than or equal to 20, print x is who remembers what plus equal 1 means?
You add it and then it's equal to, you just add it to like that. It's the equivalent of x equals x plus 1.
Yeah, you're adding 1 to x and maintaining it. So it's going to run this. Oh wait, let me get rid of this. So this is saying, this is running, as long as x is less than 20, print what x is and then add 1 to x. So we're going to get x is 10 to x is 20. Now, print x is now how do I know that x is greater than 20 here? Wouldn't it be better if I did if x is greater than 20 and then displayed this?
Well, you know, if you loop with the
Correct. As soon as I get to line 26, am I inside of the while loop? No, and that while loop will only continue when what? When x is what? Less than or equal to. So as soon as x is no longer less than or equal to 20, we'll get to line 26. This is something that I've seen in the past in the intro class where students, they'll inside of here go if x is greater than 20, then they print it. And you don't need to do that because as soon as you're outside of the loop, you know this is false. Does that make sense? Okay. What is the most important thing about a while loop that you have to do inside of a while loop? Maddie?
Allow it to end or do some sort of increment so that your like conditional statement was run does it.
Yes, you need a way for it to end. Typically, you rewrite this variable. So if we're doing something that involves a user, so we're going to start with user being yes, and while user equal y, we're going to do this while loop. User is input. I cannot spell. Would you like to play again? And as long as the user says yes, this will continue to ask. So I'm just going to run this. Would I like to play again? Yes, 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 yes. And until I say no or anything that's not y, it's going to continue. But I have to rewrite what user equals inside of the while loop. If I don't, And let's say I don't have this in here. My while loop will never end. So you have, whatever this is, the easy way to do it is, whatever this is, that variable also has to be inside of the while loop somewhere, allowing you to change it. Now, if you're using while true, so if you want a loop to go period, right, like a video game, right, as soon as they hit start, you want your video game to play, and you want it to keep going, and you have 16 different ways the loop could end. You may not want to have while game is running or while x equals run. You may just want while true, and then x is 10. Then you have if x equal 10. Then you hit break. Else continue. X is int input enter number. Oops. So as long as I type anything besides 10, this loop is always going to go. But as soon as I type 10, it's over. I can't remember with the older class if I went over break and continue. So basically break jumps you out of the loop. If you have while true, you have to have break somewhere in that loop. You have to, or else it never, ever, ever ends. You may be able to throw, I can't remember if you can throw a false in there and just like false. I don't think so. Like, I don't think if you do this, it'll work. Yeah. So you got to have break. So if you have while true, you need break. And what continue does, continue starts the loop over no matter what. So if x is 11, print the loop will restart. So again, if I just type in, right, the loop is always going to restart, but if I type in 11, it goes from this line back to the beginning and it ignores everything underneath it. So a continue is, I needed them to type in the name and the name was too short. I've evaluated that it's too short. I'm immediately starting the loop over, even though normally what I would do is, as long as their name's long enough, I would then see if they have the correct password. We're just going to start over and we're going to continue to start over up until they say what I want them, or have what I want them to type. So break immediately stops your loop. It ends it right then and there. Boom. Oh. And so if you type in 10, it ignores everything else. And it goes to line 40, but since we have nothing on line 40, nothing's there. Continue ignores everything underneath it, but starts all over. So they kind of do the same thing, but they go in opposite directions. Continue goes up, break jumps out. And you really only need to have these if you have while true. So if you have while true, you have to have break. You don't have to have continue in a loop, but if you have while true, you have to have a break. That's just the easiest way to go about it. Again, you don't have to use while true if you don't want to, but that's just up to you. Questions on while loops? I believe that's really it. If you understand if statements, you can understand while loops, because you can have while x is this and y is that, or while x is this or y is that. So you can, y is that, haha. So you can have multiple Boolean expressions like that, and just like an if statement. The biggest thing is with while statements, while loops, they're condition based and they can never end. So you always want to code in something to exit, like a break, or you change user inside of the loop. Like in the video game we built, we did while game equals running, or while whatever running equals 0 or 1, whatever, I can't remember. While game is 1, that means it's running. We could have put while game is true, and then once you died, make game is false. And then that stops the loop. We also could have put a break in there. If we put a break in there, what would have happened is it would have skipped all the part about coding or accuracy. So if you guys don't remember the game, I can explain it to you. But break is where you want to, everything else in the loop we're ignoring. We're done. You typed in the specific thing, and it jumped us out. Questions on that? Comments, concerns, critiques, cookies, crackers? No? One of these days, one of you guys might bring cookie. One of you people might bring cookies or something. Maybe. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes. I briefly want to go over lists so that you guys can work on the homework. So let me save this. Control N, S, review. So a list is just it gives you the ability to have multiple objects associated with one variable. So a list has to have brackets at the end of it, or all of your information has to be within the brackets, and you can have names. Let's do everything has to be separated by commas. And if I know I have a bunch of names, I'll just go and then type in as opposed to like typing the name and then this, that, that just annoys me. So now I have all the names of my students. I can print names. Actually, I'm going to do all of this in the shell. Actually, no, I won't. So Maddie, Adam, Brendan, Thorne, Stockton, David. What if I just wanted to print Maddie's name? How would I do that? Does anyone remember?
Name, bracket, 0.
And what is this called, Stockton? Starts with an I. Index, yep. So what that does is it starts at, so the index of an object, specifically lists and strings, the first item in the list has index of 0. I'm not going to go into I have a guess as to why, but I'm not going to go into it in case I'm wrong. So Maddie is 0, Adam is 1, Brendan is 2, Thorne 3, Stockton 4, David 5. So the index, the maximum index of a list is the length of the list minus 1. So if I print, I'll get 6, because how many items are in the list? 6, yep. Oh my gosh, we only have 2 minutes. So the maximum index of this list is going to be what? 5. Does anyone, now this is going to be a little tricky, does anyone remember how to print just David's name? There's technically 3 ways to do it. Use -1, yep. So print names bracket -1. There's also, and I'm just going to do this all on the same line, names. Not -6, I could do 5. And I could do, now this one's long and kind of not needed, but I could do the length of names minus 1. Because what's the length of names? What's minus 1? 6 minus 1? 5. And that also will give me the last one. So I should have David, David, David. Yep. Now, one of the most used method, does anyone have questions on that? We'll go over list slicing probably tomorrow, but list slicing is I want to take this section of the list or that section of the list. Well, we literally have 15 seconds, I think. So last thing is append, and I think this is what you need for the homework. Again, I'll give you time on Wednesday to work on your homework. So if you want to get started on it, go right ahead, but don't. If you're like, I can't remember how to do this, I will go over some of this on Wednesday. So if you don't get started on your homework, that's fine. Apparently I was wrong about what time we get out of here. We may have another 5 minutes because class started at 30, right?
Yeah.
We have 48-minute classes today? Yeah, that makes sense. So if you don't get started on your homework until Wednesday, that's fine. If you want to get started on it, you're welcome to. I will give you time most of Wednesday, and it will be due Friday before the quiz is. Yeah, because I'll give you time to do it in class, so you guys all shouldn't necessarily need me to correct it, because you all should get good questions, whatever. Okay, so the last thing is append. So append, what it does, it adds to the end. So you can see the end, right, END, and then append. If you flip the P's upside down, what do they become? What? D, so add end, append. And we want to add, I didn't forget about you, Will. We're going to add William. Wait, isn't it supposed to show me that I appended it? Oh, okay, printed. Yeah, so it prints the first time with the 6 names, and then it's the 7 up here. So append, add end, append, whatever you put in these parentheses will get added to the end. I could put an entire different list in there. So let's do names.append, and we'll get the other 2 guys. But I want this to be in its own list. Do you think I'll get an error because I haven't defined this list, or am I okay? Do I need to define that list? I don't think I do either. But look, they are in their own list.
So you have to have 2 indexes if you want to access this.
Ooh, good point. Yep. So if I wanted to print his name's okay.
So would it be 6 or no? It'd be 7. Be like bracket 7 and then it'd be
So well, hang on. Let's see what bracket 7 is. You're going real fast. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we print names 7, that gives us Aaron and Frodo. And then if we wanted to print just Aaron, we'd add a 0, and then for Frodo, we'd make it a 1. Does that make sense? Okay. That's it for today. If you guys and lady want to get started, I would recommend at least looking at the homework so you have an idea. It is online. I think I changed the due date. If not, I'll change it right now. But you guys will have most of Wednesday to work on that, and I want you guys to ask me questions because I want you to feel prepared for the quiz on Friday. If you do have questions, please let me know. I will see you all Wednesday. Oh, I don't have you guys tomorrow, so if there's a snow day, have fun. Hang on one sec. Will, you're good to go if you want. I'll see you around.